Can you imagine? She just liked to park in a black woman's driveway thinking the black woman didn't have the courage to do anything about it. Until one day she called a tow truck, and the neighbor's furious breakdown was captured on camera and spread across the internet like wildfire. If you love interesting stories like this that expose the truth, please give this video a thumbs up and tell us in the comment section where in the world you are watching this video, and also do well to smash that subscribe button. The morning air in Maplewood Heights was thick with tension, the kind that makes your skin crawl and your heart race. You had an oh right. The scream cut through the peaceful Saturday like a knife through silk. Karen Mitchell stood frozen as the tow truck lifted her silver Honda off the ground. Her face burned with rage. Her finger pointed like a loaded gun at the woman standing calmly on the porch. "You called a tow truck on me?" Karen's voice cracked with disbelief. Neighbors pressed their faces to windows. Phones started recording. The whole street held its breath. But Jasmine Thompson didn't flinch. Not even a little. "You parked in my driveway," Jasmine said quietly, her voice steady as stone. Again, Jasmine Thompson was 42 years old and had fought for every single thing she owned. A senior software engineer working from her home office, she'd saved for 20 years to buy her dream house on Elm Street. Every morning, she watered her flowers. Every weekend, she trimmed her hedges. Every month, she painted what needed painting. This wasn't just a house. It was her fortress, her legacy, her peace. The driveway? That narrow strip of concrete meant everything. It was the line between what was hers and what wasn't. And Karen Mitchell had been crossing that line for months. Karen Mitchell lived across the street and acted like she owned the whole block. At 48, she was loud, entitled, and made sure everyone knew she'd been in Maplewood Heights longer than anyone else. "Just parking for a minute," she'd say with a wave, pulling into Jasmine's driveway without asking. But minutes turned into hours. Hours turned into days of disrespect. At first, Jasmine tried being nice. She left polite notes. She had calm conversations. She even showed Karen the security footage of her constant trespassing. Nothing worked. Karen kept parking there like it was her personal spot. Not because she had to, but because she knew Jasmine wouldn't make a scene. She was wrong. Thursday night changed everything. Jasmine had just finished a brutal 14-hour shift fixing crashed servers for clients across 3 time zones. She was exhausted, hungry, and ready to collapse. But when she turned onto Elm Street, there it was again. Karen's Honda sitting in her driveway like it belonged there. Jasmine sat in her car, hands gripping the steering wheel. The groceries in her back seat were melting in the summer heat. She called Karen's phone. "What?" Karen answered, already annoyed. "I need you to move your car. I just got home from work." Karen snorted. "You don't need to be so dramatic, Jasmine. It's not that serious." Click. She hung up. That's when Jasmine remembered her grandmother's words. "Baby, you don't fight every battle. But when you do fight, make sure they never forget it." Jasmine stepped out of her car, walked into her house, and made one phone call. To the tow truck company. The next morning, chaos erupted. Slam! Karen's screen door hit the wall like a gunshot. Her bare feet slapped against the pavement as she stormed across the street, waving a piece of paper like a battle flag. "You had my car towed!" She screamed loud enough to wake the dead. Neighbors poured out of their houses. Windows flew open. The whole street became a theater, and Karen was the star of her own meltdown. But Jasmine? She stood on her porch, coffee in hand, calm as morning mist. "You're being aggressive." Karen jabbed her finger in the air. "You could have talked to me." Jasmine took a slow sip of her coffee. When she finally spoke, her voice was so quiet the whole street had to lean in to hear it. "Karen, I did talk to you. I left notes. I showed you footage. You ignored all of it." Karen opened her mouth, but Jasmine held up one hand. You parked in my driveway again and again. Not because you had to, but because you thought I wouldn't do anything about it. Right on cue, the tow truck rumbled down the street. The driver hopped out and handed Karen a white envelope. City-certified towing, he said. Your car was trespassing. Karen's face went white, then red, then purple. She looked around for support from the neighbors. Instead, she found nodding heads and crossed arms. Honestly, said Mrs. Patterson from next door, you do park in her spot all the time. The silence that followed was deafening. Humiliated and desperate, Karen did what cornered people do. She lied. That afternoon, she called the police and filed a false report. She threatened me, Karen told the officer, clutching her purse like a shield. She stood over me, all aggressive. I felt scared for my life. Her voice shook just enough to sound believable to someone who didn't know the truth. But Jasmine had the truth on camera. When Officer Martinez knocked on her door that evening, Jasmine didn't argue or explain. She simply walked to her security system and pressed play. The footage showed everything. Karen screaming and pointing. Jasmine standing calm and still, never raising her voice, never taking a step toward her accuser. Officer Martinez watched in silence. When it ended, he sighed and shook his head. That's all I need to see, he said. Thank you, Ms. Thompson. No charges were filed against Jasmine. But Karen? She got a citation for filing a false police report. The security footage didn't stay private for long. A neighbor shared it online with a simple caption. This is how you win without yelling. Within 24 hours, the video exploded across social media. Millions of people watched Karen's meltdown and Jasmine's grace under fire. Comments poured in. This woman is a masterclass in dignity. Look how she never lost her cool. This is real strength. Talk shows picked it up. News stations ran it. The internet couldn't get enough of the woman who won a war without firing a shot. Karen's name and face were everywhere, but not in a good way. People called her entitled, arrogant, a bully who got what she deserved. Within a week, Karen had disappeared from social media. Her porch lights stayed off. She picked up packages quickly, like she didn't want to be seen. And she never parked in Jasmine's driveway again. Not once. Weeks later, something beautiful happened. The editor of the Maplewood Heights newsletter reached out to Jasmine. They wanted to feature her story in their community section. Not just the incident, but how she handled it with such grace. They also asked to use her footage in workshops about neighborhood conflict resolution. Jasmine smiled as she typed her response. Yes, but credit the story to patience, not power. Then she did something unexpected. She printed simple invitations on cream-colored paper. Come by for a backyard gathering. No speeches, no drama. Just neighbors. She delivered one to every mailbox on the street. Even Karen's. Saturday evening came, and one by one they arrived. The elderly couple from 2 doors down. The young family with twin boys. The retired teacher who always waved from her garden. Soon, Jasmine's backyard was filled with laughter, conversation, and the smell of grilled burgers. String lights twinkled overhead. Children played on the grass. Neighbors who'd barely spoken before were swapping stories and phone numbers. Karen didn't come, but Jasmine wasn't waiting for her. This wasn't about Karen anymore. As the evening wound down and guests lingered under the stars, Jasmine stepped away for a moment. She looked out at her driveway, clean, empty, and undisturbed. That strip of concrete had become more than just a parking spot. It was a symbol of what happens when quiet strength meets loud entitlement. When dignity refuses to back down. When patience finally draws the line. Jasmine never raised her voice, but her silence shattered the noise. She never threw a punch, but her composure knocked out the bully. She never demanded respect, but she earned it by showing what real strength looks like. In a world where everyone's yelling, Jasmine Thompson proved that the most powerful weapon isn't your voice, it's your character. Her driveway stayed clear not because of fear, but because of the message her dignity delivered without saying a word. Sometimes justice doesn't need a courtroom. Sometimes it just needs a tow truck and a woman who refuses to be pushed around. Jasmine's story isn't really about a driveway. It's about every line that shouldn't have to be defended but is. Every boundary that gets crossed until someone finally says enough. And it's about doing it all without losing yourself in the process. Because dignity doesn't yell. It holds the line. Quietly, consistently, powerfully. And when the dust settles, dignity always wins. Have you ever had to fight for something that should have been yours by right? A space, a moment of peace, respect that others felt entitled to take? Share this story if you believe that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply refuse to back down. With grace.